Man, I suck. Every single time I try, it never works out. No matter what I do, nothing ever goes my way. No one likes me. No one likes what I do. I'm not getting views. Every time I start, I stop. I should just give up and just settle and be mediocre. That's what you sound like when you be talking to yourself. Aren't you tired of the negative self-talk? Well, we're going to talk all that and more coming up next on the Third Quarter Podcast. Welcome to the Third Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Ace, and you know I am blessed by the best, but guess what? So are you, and you are listening to the number one podcast in the world for health and wellness and fitness and mental wellness and all those other wellnesses. Welcome. I got some good news, but before we get to the good news, I need you to do me a favor. If you've been in this community for a while, because this is a community, this is our podcast, this is ours, this is a community effort. I sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is ours. This is our community. This is our podcast. And I just need you to do me a favor. If you would take some time, whether it's right now or after this podcast, to rate us 5 stars, if it's true to you. Please rate us, review us, and subscribe and follow. The reason is because, number one, if you follow and click the notification bell, you will get notified whenever a new episode drops. But also, that is you being a blessing to us, because the more that you follow the podcast and rate it and review it, the more other people are going to get notified and shown on their feed. We want to help as many people as possible, but they have to know who we are and where they can find us. And that is what the community is for. So thank you in advance for that. Now to the good news. By the time you hear this episode, I think, if we time it right, by the time you hear this, it would have been my birthday. My birthday is April the 17th, which would be a Wednesday, I believe. So I believe this episode is going to come out the day after that. So happy birthday to me. I'll give you 10 seconds to give me a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Didn't have to. Thank you. But yeah, I will be 37 years old, and what an amazing year it's been. Getting in the best shape of my life, reclaiming my health, starting a podcast, and so many other things that I'm grateful for. So I want to thank you in advance for the birthday wishes and everything. And this podcast has been a real gift, and seeing the comments and the shares of what the podcast is doing, it's been amazing. And it's all thanks to you. So thank you for allowing this to be a gift that has served me. I really appreciate it. But today, we are talking about negative self-talk. Now, if you're someone like me, there has been times in your life, and way too many times, where you be talking down and dirty to yourself. Talking straight negative, just talking yourself out of it for no reason. The world is going to kick you down. Society is going to tell you you can't. You are the last person that needs to tell you that too. But why do we do it? Why do we talk ourselves out? Why do we criticize ourselves? Why do we talk so negative to our own self? I don't get it. I can't stand it. And today we're going to address it. Now, if you are someone right now that is always talking negative to yourself, I'm not saying that it's going to stop today. I'm not saying that this episode is going to be the cure-all for that. But my hope is that after listening to this will be a seed that is planted for you to really be more aware of how you're speaking to yourself. Because really what negative self-talk is, it's self-sabotage. And oftentimes that I found in my life, and maybe you can agree to this as well or empathize with this, whenever I'm embarking in something new, whenever I'm getting out of my comfort zone, whenever I'm striving for something that maybe I've never done before, or no one in my family's done, or I really don't have a direct community blueprint, that's when the negative self-talk really starts. And I can tell you firsthand, this podcast, before I actually launched it, there was a lot of negative self-talk. What do you have to offer? No one wants to hear you. Your voice sucks. What have you actually accomplished? Like, there's all these random things that just pop in your mind that aren't true, but we believe it. And one of the reasons why I believe that we believe that is because the thing that we're trying to embark on, we haven't seen ourselves do it yet. So there's a part of us that's really vulnerable to this new era that we're going into. So when it came to the podcast, I knew for years I wanted to do this. And I've talked about this in prior pods, but there was a lot of just weight that was on my mind and on my heart that was just negative stuff. You don't have anything to say. You don't have a story yet. All these things that goes in our mind that really stops us from moving forward. And if I can just get spiritual for a second, the enemy is the author of confusion, and he wants nothing more for you to get in your own way because he can't really stop you from doing anything, right? He can't just say, no, you can't do that, but he can plant seeds in your mind where you convince yourself that you can't do this. And we'll start to say things in our mind, and even worse, we start to say things through our mouth that start to ring true through our eyes. And when we start to say things enough, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm too skinny, I'm not smart enough, or no one in my family's ever done this, so why should I try? No one's going to like it. No one's going to listen. No one's going to buy. When we start to say these things over and over and over again, we start to believe it and we start to adopt it as our identity. Because there is a part of us, if we're really being honest right now, there is a part of us that is a little hesitant and is a little uncertain if this thing is going to work out. Because if you're doing something new and you've never done it, it's going to be hard for you to 100% believe that you can see it through. And then again, that's where the faith part comes in, because there is a part of this that only God can do. So when your mind is running all over the place and you have this negative self-talk in your mind, and then it comes out of your mouth, sometimes we do that whether we know it or not, so we can verify how we really feel about this new thing. For an example, if I feel that what I'm embarking on doesn't have a high probability of succeeding, right? The more that I say that out of my mouth, the more I'm going to verify how I feel about it, which is going to continue to perpetuate this idea that I should stop. So it's almost like I'm doing a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm telling myself this podcast isn't going to work. I'm not going to have any listeners. No one's going to care. I'm not going to have any followers or subscribers. I'm not going to have 5 stars. No one's going to like the way that I talk. I talk too fast. I have a stammer. I talk too slow. I'm not as funny. Like, all these thoughts come to my mind. And the more that I acknowledge them and give them power through my mouth, because it's one thing to have negative self-talk in your mind. It's another thing to have negative self-talk verbally out of your mouth, because words have power and words carry weight. Words are very spiritual. Okay? If we're looking at the beginning of time, God created the world through words. So words have not just verbal power, not just physical power, but they have spiritual power. And so the more that we hear ourselves say these things, the more that we are furthering the perpetual decline of our potential, because the more that we say it, the more that we're going to believe it, and the more that we're going to stop. And I'm here to remind you and encourage you that just because you think it doesn't make it true. And just because you think it, it doesn't mean you should say it. You can't stop every thought from coming into your mind. You can't stop every negative thought that intrudes your brain, but you can stop it from coming out of your mouth. And so I want this to be a call of action. I'm not really going to have steps. Maybe. We'll see. But this is really more so about a call of action. Be careful what you say about yourself. Because the more that you say it, the more you're going to believe it, and the more you're going to take the actions to make it true. Because if you constantly say, you're not going to do it, you're not educated, you're not smart, you're not gifted, your actions are going to follow those words to make what you're saying true, even if what you're saying is not true. You're going to do the thing to make sure that the words are true. That's crazy. Because whenever you're doing something new, it's really you're like a baby. You're like a little wah-wah, right? You're like a little baby. And of course, if you're a baby, and like think of this illustration. What if a parent got pissed at their child, their baby, for trying to take their first steps and falling? And they're like, you're so stupid. Why can't you just walk? I mean, you have legs. Why can't you just do it? You're never going to be able to do it. You're stupid. You're never going to be able to walk like me. I've been walking for 40 years. Why can't you walk for the first time? Like, just imagine the words that you're speaking into the spirit of this baby, right? You're getting pissed at a baby trying to take their first steps and getting upset that they fall over, when the expectation is that they should fall. They should fall down because it's new. Their body isn't used to it. Their structure is still trying to figure itself out. But there's something on the inside of that baby that spoke to them and said, I'm going to try to stand up here. I don't know why. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to try and stand up. And you know what? I'm going to try to take some steps. I'm going to try. And then they fall down. And you know, when a baby falls down, it's like those inflatable things that be at like car lots. Like their bodies are just kind of like flopping. There's no control over their limbs, right? But just imagine a parent getting angry at their child, their baby, for trying to walk and take their first steps, but falling. What if you witnessed that? You would think that parent is insane. I got news for you. That's how you look when you're doing it to you. You're starting a dream. You're doing something new. You're getting outside of your comfort zone. You're doing something that nobody in your family has ever done. And you're pissed because you're taking your first steps and you fall down? Are you kidding me? You're embarking in something new. You're going from crawling to standing to walking. Of course you're going to fall down. But what we do is we say, you're so stupid. I can't believe you tried. You should never walk again. You should never do this. No one in your family's done it. That should be an indicator why you should stop. Duh, use your mind. This is how we look to ourselves. It's the exact same thing of watching a parent yell at their baby for falling trying to walk. Anytime you're starting something new, I don't care how gifted you are at the infant stage. The very first episode of my podcast is going to fail in comparison to my 100th episode. Matter of fact, it fails in comparison to this episode. Because I was learning to walk. I was figuring it out. But if I was to beat myself up and say, you can't do this, you suck, I wouldn't have made it this far. We're a top 140 podcast in the health and wellness space in a month. And we're nowhere near fully formed yet. But if I would have stopped because I didn't like the way I sounded after episode 1. Think about the impact that people would be missing. Think about the fulfillment I would be missing. Think about what you would be missing. And guess what? It's the same thing for you. The more that you talk yourself out of something, you're robbing us of something. There's something that you do so well that someone like me would need, want, or buy. But you're talking yourself out of it because you're falling, trying to stand, taking your first step, and now I'm robbed of it. I'm pissed at you because you're stopping yourself. There's someone out there that needs what you have, but the only way they can get it is if you stop speaking to yourself in a way like you're not an infant trying to learn to walk. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some credit. When the negative talk enters your brain, you better not speak that out of your mouth. Matter of fact, do the opposite. If you get a negative thought that comes and says, man, you suck, you're never going to do this, say, man, I am so grateful for this fall because that's an indicator that I tried to walk. And I'm going to keep going until I walk, and then I'm going to keep going until I can run, and I'm going to keep going till I can fly. But if you keep speaking to yourself that way, if you keep doubting yourself, if you keep criticizing yourself, if you keep being overly analytical, I'm so pissed I can't even speak, right? So analytical, not only will you not be able to be fulfilled, but you're going to rob us of something that is so special, so unique, so wonderful, and so beautiful. So I'm not saying stop the negative thoughts from entering your brain. That would be silly, Billy. I'm saying control the filter. Just because it enters your brain, it doesn't need to exit your mouth. That was a bar. Write that down. Just because it enters your brain, it doesn't mean it needs to exit your mouth. It's not going to end today. Today is not going to be the day where it's like you're 100% cured of negative self-talk. But today could be the day that begins the process of it coming to an end. Because you're special. You have something on the inside of you that needs to be birthed. You are pregnant with something. A gift, a talent, a business, an idea. Maybe an actual baby. I don't know. But there's something on the inside of you that needs to be birthed. And it's not just so you can make money. It's not just so you can birth it. It's what the world gains from it. But if you keep talking to yourself in a way that you speak down, you're negative, you're saying that it can never happen because you keep trying, you keep failing, you keep starting, you keep stopping, you're robbing us and the world of something that only we can get from and through you. Now, you may be wondering, well, Ace, how do I stop the negative self-talk? How do I stop it? How do I stop it? The number one thing that you got to remember is you just have to be aware. Because sometimes, if I'm being honest, we're not even aware of what we're saying. Because sometimes we say things self-deprecating that we're trying to be funny and it sounds innocent, like, man, I'm always messing up, or man, you know how I be tripping. Like, we say things in jest, but words have power. Just because you throw an LOL after you say something, that doesn't soften it. Like, it doesn't. Be more aware of what you're saying. So if you do something and you try and it doesn't work out, and your mind is like, you should stop, you should quit, you're stupid, you're not smart, you should have listened to your parents, you should have listened to your professor, yada, yada, yada. I need you to be aware that the thoughts are present, but I need you to be more aware of what you say, because what you say, you give power to. What you say, you give power to. When a child, an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old is trying something and it's not working and they're getting frustrated, in that moment, the parent can do one of two things. They can say something to encourage and uplift and inspire them to keep going, or they can say something to make them stop and be discouraged. Because you got to remember, it's not just about what you say in the moment. It's about the memory that's created that's a reference point for later. So if you speak to your child and discourage them from continuing, when they turn 18 and 20 years old, they're going to remember what you said. And they're going to use this as a reference point for why they should also stop in the future. What you say, you give power to. How you speak to yourself now is going to determine the actions that you take later. Be careful of the words that you use to yourself. Be careful. Because it literally will make or break your potential. I never would have imagined that this podcast would have done what it's done in a short period of time. But man, I'm telling you, before I hit send and posted the first episode, every single thought in my mind was running through. Change the title, change this, you gotta do this, you gotta do. All these things were coming through my mind because my brain was recognizing that I was about to embark in the unknown. And my brain wanted to protect me. Because one thing you got to remember, sometimes the self-talk that your brain uses is a defense mechanism to protect you from getting uncomfortable. So even you can't allow yourself to get in the way of yourself. Anytime there's a breakthrough about to happen, anytime there is progress and severe growth about to take place, this is when the self-talk is really going to be evident. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, my negative self-talk is through the roof right now, that's an indicator that you're going in the right direction. Negative self-talk is an indicator that you're going in the right direction. When there's friction involved, that means you're going in the right direction. So essentially, you want to encourage more self-talk because, I know this might sound crazy, but the more negative self-talk you have in your mind, that's an indicator that you're going in the right direction. What you have to be careful of is not to give power to the negative self-talk in your mind by speaking it out your mouth. If your brain is not doing anything negative, I would submit to you that you're not doing anything. Like if your brain is just like, oh, we good. We good. We straight. Everything's cool over here, boss. I would submit to you that's probably because you're not taking the action, you're not getting uncomfortable, and you're not stepping out on faith enough. You're not doing the thing that you know you're supposed to do, so your brain is comfort because you're not providing any friction. You're not going against the grain. So it's just like having haters. You want to have haters. You want to have people that don't like you. That means you're doing the right thing. More times than not, when you're organically being yourself, you're going to have people that just don't like it or don't agree. Your job is not to make everyone like you. Your job is to serve the people that are for you. Because remember, if you are for everyone, you ultimately are for nobody. So, in conclusion of this episode, the takeaway that I want you to have is this. You cannot stop negative thoughts from coming into your mind. That's a battle that you're going to lose 10 out of 10. But what you can do is control what comes out of your mouth. That you can control 10 out of 10. You'd be surprised how much progress you can make just by changing the way you speak to yourself verbally. My challenge for you after listening to this episode is to be more self-aware of the words that you say, even when you're joking. Because when it comes to your potential, everything matters. There's nothing less serious than the other. Everything is serious. So when you're speaking to yourself, no matter if it's joking or not, be aware of what you say. Protect your potential by how you speak to yourself. And I guarantee you, if you change the way you speak to yourself, you are definitely going to see yourself taking different action on a day-to-day basis that is going to lead you to the place that you've always wanted to go. Because, my friend, words have power. I hope this served you. I hope this blessed you like it did me. I needed this podcast 10 years ago and 5 years ago, but I hope this episode has served you and blessed you. Again, I would appreciate it if you would follow, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast when you have the time. It helps us out more than you know. I love you so much. Be safe, be blessed. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, me. I love you. Be safe, be blessed. And thank you for listening to the Third Quarter Podcast.